We are going to be talking over the next months, probably for the next year, really, more and more about this idea for us as a church to live sent. To have this idea that we are to be everyday missionaries, that God has put people in our lives that maybe no one else was well suited to help reach, and we will. And we want to, wherever we work, wherever we play, wherever we go to school, right? Wherever we live, there are people in our lives that God perhaps wants to use us to reach. And if we all start to embrace this idea of living sent, right, that's when we believe we're going to start seeing even greater fruit. We're going to see God use us in even more powerful ways. And so as we're out there among the people we live around, work around, play with in our hobbies or whatever, or go to school with, they're watching. And if we start talking about Jesus has changed my life, they want to see it. And that's a reason that kindness matters. One of the guys that comes to mind when I think of people that I know that live sent was a guy named Dave Meeks. Dave is about my age, was born about the same time I was. I met him when I was in college. He was good friends with two of my college roommates. He was on staff with Young Life, and he had an amazing ministry. In his early 30s, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor and went home to be with the Lord, and at his funeral, it was standing room only. There were people everywhere at this pretty good-sized church in Maryland because he had influenced in his, I don't know if he was in 32 or 33, somewhere in there when he passed away, but the difference he had made in so many lives and the way he lived out his faith was so genuine that it made a massive difference. When I first met Dave, he brought my brother down to JMU. I was at JMU. He was coming down to visit my roommates. My brother was actually in high school at Woodson, where Dave was a Young Life leader. My brother wasn't super involved in Young Life, but he had gotten to know Dave. Somehow we figured out that Dave was coming down. My brother wanted to come down and visit. So my brother rode with Dave Meeks down to JMU to hang out with us for the weekend. And we played some basketball and hung out and did some stuff. And at the end of it, Dave and Brett got in the car and went back, and somehow, let me read you what my brother, I asked my brother to write me a little blurb about what he remembered from that trip. Listen to what my brother wrote. He goes, "I wish I could remember more about what I talked about with Dave during the 2-hour trip. We shared an interest in guitars, so of course I imagine we talked about that a lot. We spent the weekend at Madison hanging out, having fun. The specifics are vague, but by the time he dropped me off, he had given me his Epiphone Sheraton acoustic guitar, which at the time was a godsend for me." Brett did not know Dave well at all. And they drive down to JMU and back, and Dave decides to give my brother his guitar. Classic Dave Meeks. Brett, my brother, writes, "Generosity, humility, kindness, and assisting a near stranger and a young aspiring musician with an expensive gift. That was 1986, my brother wrote. And I still have the guitar and that everlasting connection to Dave. I have many guitars that all have stories as how they came into my possession. This one may not be the most expensive guitar I own, but its origins and attachment to me are unmatched in value. I never play the guitar without thinking of Dave. In time, I plan to find someone to take it over and to continue its journey as an offering and gift, the same it was to me." When we show kindness, it is countercultural. It's what the world doesn't expect to see. Paul calls us to be kind, showing gentleness to all people. In this passage, this beginning of this passage, we're to submit, obey, slander no one, avoid fighting. Have you been online lately? We're to show kindness, gentleness to all people. What does our culture teach us? It rewards sharp comebacks, quick judgments, canceling people. And sometimes the world would say that kindness looks passive, it looks weak, because we're conditioned to be kind conditionally. Conditionally. It is expected that we show kindness conditionally. If you're kind to me, I'm going to be kind to you. And that's not at all what Paul meant when he says kindness, gentleness to all people. Frodo's kindness in The Lord of the Rings wasn't based on Gollum being good or kind or helpful. For those of you that might have read Les Miserables or seen the play or the bad movie, I said it, or read the 750,000-page unabridged version that's like this long. My wife has read it. I have not. We remember the story of Jean Valjean. He's in prison for 19 years because he stole a loaf of bread. And he gets out and he's bitter and he's hardened. And a priest invites him into his parish or whatever to feed him a meal. And Jean Valjean is so hardened at that point that he steals the silver plates and the silverware. And when the police catch him, the priest is quick to get there and say, you forgot the candlesticks that I gave you as well. In an absolutely undeserved, unmerited act of kindness. And Valjean is shaken to the core by this bishop's kindness, this undeserved kindness, where not only was he not going to be thrown back in prison because he stole the plates, but the priest said, here, you forgot the candlesticks that I gave you as well. Of course, the priest just showing undeserved favor. And the Lord of the Rings is obviously a fictional story with Christian themes running through it. So was Les Mis by Victor Hugo, same thing. But what about real life? When we see kindness in real life, it can be life-changing. September 6, 2018, a Dallas police officer named Amber Guyton had a 14-hour shift. There was an intense situation she was involved with that involved a SWAT team and taking down some people, and she's coming back home to her apartment or condo, and she's absolutely exhausted. And as she gets off the elevator, she gets off on the wrong floor. Some of you may remember this when I get into the story, but she gets off on the wrong floor. And you know, if you've ever lived in an apartment building or a condo and all the floors are the same, you get off the elevator and you just know where your apartment is, where your condo is. So she goes right to the door, and she's immediately nervous because it's unlocked and cracked open. So she pulls her revolver as she pushes open the door. And there is someone right inside, which is what she feared. But she had gotten off at the wrong floor, and she was not at her own apartment. And that person thought someone was breaking into his place. And whatever happened in the next second, she opened fire and she killed him, thinking that someone, an intruder, had broken into her place, when in reality, the dude was just in his own apartment. You get the picture here? Tragic, horrific accident, right? And could things have gone differently? Certainly things could have gone differently. But on October 2nd, 2019, almost a year later, the police officer who had been fired after that was sentenced to 10 years in prison for murder. But what happened next rocked the world. The next day, at sentencing, there was an opportunity for the family to give a family impact statement, as often happens. And the brother of Botham Jean, the man that was killed, was sort of selected by the family to stand up and give the family impact statement. And he stood up in front of the court and he said, I can't speak for my whole family on this, but I want to say to you, and he says to Amber, that I forgive you. Actually, his actual statement was, I forgive you and I love you just like anyone else. Soon his voice cracks. He tries to open his mouth to speak again. Till he does, he says, you should give your life to Christ. But I want you to know I love you as a person. I don't wish anything bad on you. He takes a deep breath. With his left hand, he wipes tears from his eyes. Now his gaze turns toward the judge. And he says, I don't know if this is possible, but could I give her a hug? He taps his hand against the top of the witness stand and sniffles and asks, please. And the judge nods, looks at her, and she moves towards him, and he embraces her, an 18-year-old boy who's lost his older brother to this woman that killed him. that murdered him. And he holds on to her for 45 seconds, and she's crying, and he's crying, and the judge is crying. 5 years later, a reporter went to find him to ask him what his reflections were about this whole thing. And he said, I can't even tell you how complicated that whole situation was. But before I stood up, my grandmother leaned over to me and said, remember, her soul is what matters. His faith became real in an incredibly real way. And he told her, I hope you come to know Jesus. What no one ever says is after things started to clear out before she was taken away, the judge went back to the judge's chambers, got a Bible, brought her a Bible, and said, I, like him, hope that you come to know Jesus through this. And she did, in prison. And she wrote a letter back to him expressing that some years later. And he says years went by, and he continued to get people over and over and over who said, I saw the hug. I saw what you did, and it has helped me process forgiveness. It has helped change my life. When we show kindness in ways that are countercultural, not just because a person deserves it, it changes lives. Changes lives. We're called to a radical kindness, not conditional. And the rubber meets the road when we have an opportunity to show kindness to the very person in your life that deserves it the least.